Poke the Bear is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 156, presented by FanDuel. My name is Conor Ryan, and I am riding solo today. I just got back from a extended trip out west to Arizona, Utah, New Mexico. So got in super late last night, got back from that extended trek, and as a result, I am riding solo today. Evan has the day off. I'm not having him record at the crack of dawn or anything like that. So I am trudging through this show solo today, fighting through a few sunburns, a few things like that, just to talk a little bit of Bruins hockey with all of you guys. So as we usually do when it's these solo shows, we're going to keep it to a mailbag format. So I reached out on Twitter to see if anyone had any Bruins-related questions regarding the team as we're kind of going through this latest stretch of kind of the second dry spell, I guess, of the offseason, right? You have really not a lot to report on from May through early June. Then you have the draft and free agency and dev camp and all those things all kind of compressed over a 2-week window. Now we're in that kind of same stretch where we're kind of just waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Like most of free agency is done. At this point, the Bruins are pretty much just waiting on the decisions of Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. And until you find out what's kind of the next step for those guys, you're kind of in this holding pattern, right? Those are the two guys that not only going to determine how exactly or what exactly the ceiling for this team is going to be, but it also, if you find out when Bergeron and Krejci come back, or if they come back, it lets the rest of your lineup fall into place. You know, where exactly a guy like Morgan Geekie is slotting to the lineup. Is, Pavel Zacha going to be your 2C? Is a guy like Coyle going to be bumped into top 6 minutes? Like, so many other things hinge on that. And until we get that answer, we really don't know. So until then, we're going to field a few questions. Again, reach out on Twitter to our loyal, subscribers and readers over there. So let's just dive into it. So first question we have is from Chad McVean at Wiener85, who says, with roughly $5 million in cap space, how much is left for Jeremy Swayman and Trent Frederic while leaving $1 million for the captain? Could 1-year deals for both and a handshake deal for more next season when the cap jumps up? Or if not, who gets moved out? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, Chad, first of all, thanks for the question. But it's tough in terms of, framing out those handshake, wink, wink, nod, nod kind of deals like that, just because, again, unless you're like a guy like, I think like it was Kevin LeBanc, who signed that 1-year deal way below his market value and really didn't pan out for him in the long term. For as much as I think people project that, there are these things where teams are going to do right by players, I think players, and especially their agents, and probably the NHLPA, want it to be more on the side of getting paid, what you're due for what you did this past season. And again, that can sometimes get into a muddled area when you look at maybe a guy like Frederic in terms of, he had a breakout year. Do the Bruins think that's sustainable and he's due the certain amount of money that he thinks he's due? Like, those are things you have to sort out. But I can't see a situation where, for as much as I'm sure from the team perspective, it's like, all right, listen, bear with us, 1-year deal at really cheap, below probably what your market rate is going to be for this season, and then we'll do right by you next year. In principle, it sounds great. The Bruins would love to have that happen. I'm sure fans would love to have, one less cap-related headache that's, already been kind of the main theme of this offseason so far by having those guys signed 1-year deals at, $1 million, $1.5 million, something like that. I just don't see that being the case. So it is going to be really tough to see what exactly the course is going to be. Because again, even if you look at just what the natural projections from a guy like Swayman and Frederic are you looking at $2.5 million for a guy like Frederic? More, right? Are you looking at Swayman? Is he going to get a similar deal to what a guy like Spencer Knight got a few years ago? So those are going to be the things that are going to determine just how much cap space you have left. And at that point, it's all right. If you do know that Patrice Bergeron's coming back, are you moving another contract? Are you trying to another buyout window comes up and you're able to move on from a guy like I don't know, like is a guy like Derek Forbort going to be a casualty of that if you sign both Frederic and Swayman to market level deals, but Patrice Bergeron is coming back? Like it's so tough to kind of map out what exactly the next step is, but and you won't really know until you find out if Bergeron's back. Now it remains to be seen if the Bruins already know that and they're bracing for that, or what the next move's going to be. But it is a task easier said than done when you look at how they can kind of balance out what's left of this remaining cap space they have, and what the next course is going to be. Because even if these guys get paid what you'd expect, Frederic and Swayman don't have a whole lot of money left over after that. And again, I think if Bergeron comes back, you're expecting a very similar type of contract to last year, right? Where he's going to pretty much bail this team out in terms of what his annual payout's going to be. But still, you need to have at least $1 million left over, right? You can't have it be, 400,000 or something like that. You need to pay this guy at the very least a minimum of what he's already going to be underpaid for this upcoming season. So it is a tough thing to wait, but I don't see a situation where both Swayman and Frederic are signing for 1 year, 1 million, 1.5, just to make the money work this year. I just don't see that being feasible from the players' side, especially their representatives. All right, next one is from Alex at Random Task 68. Says, which young players prospects are in a make it or break it 2023-24 season? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys, Alex, first of all, thanks for the question, but a lot of guys that stand out in that regard in terms of are going to be in situations where they can really try to make a sustained push. In terms of make it or break it, like I go look at guys like, Lauko, or maybe a guy like Lysell or Lori, but even like Lysell, Lori, I wouldn't say it's make it or break it, because if those guys need more time down in Providence, I think the Bruins are going to chart that course for them. Again, even though there are more vacancies, at least on paper, going into the season, I don't think they're going to rush a guy like Lysell or Lori just because they're the flashiest prospects, or they maybe have the higher ceiling amongst this crop of young talent the Bruins have. I would say some guys, though, it's those guys who I think have been in the system for a little while, that this is going to be kind of more or less their last chance. I kind of look at how a guy like Jakub Lauko was, where last training camp seemed like he was going to be an outside looking in at regular minutes. Had been in the system for a good while at that point. If he didn't pop in training camp, you kind of view that as being his kind of last run with this team. So I look at guys like, Oscar Steen, who could be in the mix for a fourth line role, even though, again, there's so many guys in that spot now. Saying a guy like Boquist further kind of complicates that in terms of getting those minutes. But he's a guy that has shown some potential when he's been called up, just hasn't consistently been able to earn those minutes. So he's a guy. Mark McLaughlin, who, again, I think is still is exempt from waivers to get sent down, but still, that's a guy that I think you look at him in his game, kind of fits the profile of a fourth line guy up at the NHL level. Really solid two-way play, really underrated shot. Was known as a key piece on a couple of BC teams during his collegiate career. Certainly helps that he's a Mass native, again, right? If you're looking for guys who kind of fit the bill as future Bruins, but he's a guy that I think when Lauko, made the team last year, people were kind of confused by it in terms of just how good Mark McLaughlin was during training camp. He was arguably their most consistent, impactful forward throughout that preseason slate. Gets sent down to Providence, so hopefully he's able to kind of build off of his last season in Providence and make a push there, because he's a guy that, again, if you're looking at internal candidates who can fill in roles, a guy like McLaughlin makes plenty of sense. And I think one guy, in terms of just where his development is and where he could project to the next level, I'll probably throw Johnny Beecher in that mix. Again, he's a guy that first round talent, hasn't, offensively hasn't put it all together down in Providence. But he's a guy that you look at just where he kind of fits and what his role could be on this team as a fourth line center. He's someone who you look at that skill set where he's got great speed, big body, can play physical. People can be upset if a fourth line stalwart, that's not exactly what you want out of a guy that's a first round pick. But if he can be your Sean Corrali and play at a similar role like that for the next 4 or 5 years, there's value in that. You just need to find out if he has what it takes to make that jump up to the NHL level. So whether that's making a really good impression during training camp, if he does get sent down to Providence again this upcoming season, does he build off of it? Is he a guy that becomes more of a consistent offensive generator down in Providence for the first few months, and then he gets called up again later on this year? I think those are things you have to weigh with a guy like Beecher, who, again, has the potential for what his role could be at the NHL, just needs to put it all together. So I think that's the guy that really sticks out to me as a guy that could be in a bit of a make it or break it year.
Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets for up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting on everything, from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to crush the first home run of the game. And frankly, that's the best part of FanDuel. You can bet on anything. You want to wager on the odds of how many dingers Rafael Devers will hit this year? Be my guest. Maybe the Bruins over-under for wins next season. Go for it. So bet now on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/Boston to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball.
This next question is from @PocketChimpy, who says, if we had to have one, who do we keep, Frederic or Swayman? First of all, thanks for the question @PocketChimpy. I think it's got to be Swayman in terms of, again, you can maybe view his role as being a bit redundant with a guy like Ullmark still in place, but I still think if you look at this team and what in this, if you want to call it a bridge year, what their keys to success are going to be, it's going to be goaltending and it's going to be defense. And, they're not going to have nearly as much offensive firepower, not nearly as much depth, but if you're able to have a situation where you have that tandem of Swayman and Ullmark in net, I think that can go a long way towards getting you in a position where you can continue to grind out wins, remain in the playoff picture, and having a guy like Swayman in place who was really, really good last year and stands to be even better moving forward, where, considering where he is in his development and his age, I think that's the guy you really covet. And it's not to say that Frederic's the guy that if, the arbitration goes awry, the Bruins are just going to be like, all right, peace. Like Frederic, I think we've mentioned this on multiple podcasts before, talking with Evan. Like he's such a fascinating player to project, and that we don't really know what exactly he is, right? Is he this 17, 20 goal guy that showed flashes of that last year, who has added value off of his, physicality and his way to impact the game in that regard? Like, even if he maybe not be as dynamic of a player, you look at whatever line he was on last year, he helped out whoever he was on, just doing kind of the little things. So is he more of that player, or is he a player that was on a bit of a shooting heater last year, and he's more of a 10, 12 goal kind of fringe third line, fourth line guy? We don't really know what exactly his spot's going to be. That remains to be seen. So that's not to say the Bruins are going to give up entirely on him or anything like that. They still want to sign him. But if you had to pick just one, I think if you're the Bruins, you're going Swayman in that regard. So thank you for the question @PocketChimpy. This next one is Frederic for MVP. You probably disagree with my last comment. And Frederic for MVP says, or asks, who is more likely to break out next year, Lysell or Merkulov? If you ask me, I'm probably going to lean more Merkulov in terms of, I think his just overall game is probably more developed at this point. I think Lysell, listen, like you can see the talent is evident, the skating, the offensive capabilities. If he's able to put kind of his, second half dip last season in the rearview mirror, come into this camp healthy, motivated, committed, and makes a push, like I wouldn't put it past him, making a pretty good case for opening the year on what have you, the third line, top six. Is this could be a situation where he's kind of the, Anders Bjork or Jake Debrusk a few years ago, where it has a really good preseason, earns a top six spot out of the gate and kind of rolls with it. Like he has the potential to do that, puts it all together. But I think if you're the Bruins, you don't want to rush a guy like that who really did kind of hit a wall last year, has still a bit to work on with his, his conditioning or his physicality or fighting through things. Defensive game needs a little bit of work. So I think you just look at what Merkulov did last year. And again, he's still a guy that has to work on his overall game. Again, no one's perfect at that stage of their development, but whether it's his defensive play or, filling out his frame as well. But Merkulov, I think you look at his skill set and how impressive he was in the offensive part of his game down in the AHL ranks last year. He's a guy that it's going to be really interesting to see where exactly he fits on this team. Playmaking is there, good shot, good one-timer. And again, if you're the Bruins and you're looking for the state of this roster where you don't have nearly as much scoring depth, if a guy like Merkulov can make a good impression out of camp, and all of a sudden he's a guy that you can trust in a middle six role out of the gate as a rookie, and you kind of ease him along, and as the year goes on, he becomes an impact player for you. That's best case scenario for the Bruins, right? If you look at this Bruins team, right, they're trying to stay competitive this year, of course, with defense and goaltending. But if they can do that, remain in the playoff picture, set themselves up for a really, hefty spending spree next year when the cap jumps up and they have a lot of money coming off the books, and also get some clarity with some younger guys, whether it's someone like a Merkulov or Beecher or Lauko or someone like that. If you can get out of this upcoming season while also having one or two younger guys who have fought and carved out sustained roles for themselves, it's a pretty good season for the Bruins, considering just how daunting this offseason was. So I do think they're going to see how a guy like Lysell Merkulov could do if they're going to get, I'm sure, plenty of reps this preseason. But again, it falls on the player themselves to make that push during this preseason slate. But if you ask me, I'd probably put Merkulov a little bit higher in terms of maybe just how NHL ready he is. If we're talking ceiling, I probably lean more Lysell, but I think he has a little bit more ways to go. This is a nice question. This is from loyal listener Ty Anderson @_Ty Anderson, who asks, "Why do you, a native of Orlando, Florida, fake your Boston accent for TikTok?" No comment, Ty. No comment. Moving right along, we got one from Robbie Feynman @TheFinestMan, who asks, "What makes sense for Jake Debrusk? Trade while his value is at a high, or hope to negotiate an extension at season's end?" Great question, Robbie, and it's going to be a really fascinating kind of situation to see how the Bruins tackle this, because I think ideally you look at Jake Debrusk and what he brings, and for his talent, for where he's been in the lineup, you look at the last couple of years, ever since he got slotted up to the top six, he's been pretty much a 30-goal guy if he stays healthy. If he didn't break his leg in the Winter Classic last year, you're looking at a guy who scored 35 goals, right? And for what his value is, and as a guy who has been kind of homegrown through the Bruins system, I think ideally you want to keep him. It just depends on what exactly that money is going to be, right? Like that's going to be the biggest hurdle, right? Because I don't think that, as much as he was rumored as a potential trade chip this offseason, you look at what his cap hit is, plus the expected production you're going to get out of him. Even if Bergeron's not there, wherever you put Debrusk in the top six, he's going to do some damage this year. He's going to give you at least, I think, 25 goals, if not more, if he stays healthy. So if you're the Bruins and you're trying to, remain competitive and try to keep some more of that scoring capabilities there, I don't think you're moving on from a guy like Debrusk, especially at that price range. But by that same token, you have to figure out what you're going to do with this upcoming offseason. Because let's say Debrusk is a 30-goal scorer. He's doing a pretty nice raise, right? Do you want to be the team that gives him 6 years at $6.5, $7 million, right? Like, if anything, Debrusk is probably due for an even heftier pay raise, because a lot of these players hitting free agency this upcoming summer are going to benefit from the cap jumping up. And again, the Bruins are in a good spot where they are going to have a whole bunch of cap space available this upcoming summer. But are you going to divert a pretty hefty piece of that to re-signing a guy like Debrusk, or would you rather use that for other players like Elias Lindholm or Noah Hannafin or what have you? Like, maybe the Bruins have the ability to spend and sign 2 or 3 of those guys, but it is something that if you're going to have all this money available when you're Don Sweeney, you want to spend it wisely, right? Because you already have a pretty solid foundation in place, but the last thing you want to do is kind of stunt this next kind of contention window or this next generation of talent you have there with a few albatross contracts or deals that aren't going to age very well. That's not to say that Debrusk won't age well, but they have to make that determination of whether or not he's a guy that's going to be worth six-year deal at $7.5 million, because that is going to be really interesting to see how it works out. I still think the Bruins are inclined to keep him, but it's something definitely worth monitoring. And this one is actually kind of going off that. This is Thorns fan 19, who says, any chance they play Debrusk at left wing opposite Pasta? That is actually going to be a really interesting case this year, Thorns fan, because again, he's been really good on his weak side at right wing the last couple of years, put on with a line with Marchand and Bergeron. Remains to be seen if Bergeron's going to be back. So again, he's one of the many other guys who you kind of weigh those options as to what this lineup's going to look like when you don't have or do have a guy like Patrice Bergeron in that lineup. But it is a fascinating case in terms of, let's say a younger player like a Lysell does pop during the preseason. You do have the luxury then of slotting Debrusk back to his natural spot at left wing and slotting him next to a guy like Pavel Zacha and David Pastrnak. And again, you look at just the offensive capabilities of that line. There's a lot to like about it, right? Like, I think Debrusk is still a guy you can pencil in for 20, 25 goals, but putting him with a guy like David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha, who I think really made impressive strides last year, who's to, what's to say that he can't continue to put those numbers in that similar role? And if that opens up a spot on the top line for a guy like Lysell, or, could a guy like a Morgan Georgii make a sustained push and fight for a role in the top six or what have you? I think you look at just where the Bruins have prioritized this season in terms of how they're going to handle their forward core. I think all relies on flexibility, right? And having the ability to switch guys out, kind of tinker your lineup around kind of the guys where they're going to fall into the lineup. But whether it's guys like Geeky, whether it's you look at this really crowded fourth line grouping where you've got the opportunity for younger guys like a Beecher or a Lauko or McLaughlin to fight for minutes, but if they don't pan out or they're not at that stage of their development yet, you have plenty of guys like Boquist or Patrick Brown or what have you that can step into those roles. Milan Lucic, obviously. I think for the Bruins, it's just, they have a lot of guys in place already that it remains to be seen how it's all going to sort out, but at the very least, they're giving themselves options. And having Debrusk and having that ability to slot him back over to left wing, I think, fits in line with what the Bruins are thinking there, where, he can, help drive play in the top six on the right side. But if he needs to go back to his natural spot because the guy pushes and we have a room there on the right side, Debrusk can move back to left wing, and I think we'll be pretty happy if he's playing regular minutes with guys like David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha. So that's definitely something to keep tabs on as well. So I think those are all the questions we have for today. We're going to wrap this up now, but again, we'll be back to our regular programming next week, Evan and I. So expect more of Bruins Beat and Poke the Bear as we kind of continue to navigate through these kind of slower stretches of the Bruins offseason. Again, we'll see what happens when Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci do make their decisions, because then it will ramp up again quite a bit. But until then, thank you guys for listening to episode 156 of Poke the Bear. I'm Conor Ryan. Thank you guys for listening.